it's Jay here from Jay's Decor and Restore. I have another great project to get started on. It's a dresser that was donated by my hairdresser, April, so shout out to her. And I'm going to be making that into a wine buffet, or I should say a wine bar slash buffet. I've inserted a picture of the dresser. It's beautiful pine dresser. It's in really, really good shape. And what I plan to do is create some shelves or some slots to fit the wine bottles in, which I've never done before. I'm also going to be using chalk paint this time, so I'm going to run through some real quick techniques on, staining and a little bit of sanding, which I've done before. But really, I wanted to show you how to create those shelves. So I'm going to go ahead and head on out to the garage and start disassembling the dresser, and I'll be back in a bit. I've removed the doors and the drawers and the hardware now, my next step is I want to go ahead and start removing these parts here, because this is where I'm going to make my shelves for my wine bottles, so that people can slide in the wine bottle. And then I also want to look at possibly adding a shelf here that will slide out. Now, I want to see how expensive it's going to be to buy the rails and the wood, but if it's inexpensive and it's easy, because I'm all about easy, I want to go ahead and see what I can do there. And then I'll add the doors back in and or back on, and then add some beautiful hardware to complement the color scheme that I'm going to use. My intention is to go ahead and stain this, the top of this, a nice dark stain that will complement and bring out the grain in the pine, and then paint the body of it, a nice maybe chalky white or ivory, something like that. So my first step is to, now that I've removed the doors and I'm going to remove these, I will start sanding. I won't go into sanding. I've done many videos where I've talked about how to sand and the different sanders. If you haven't looked at some of my other videos, I highly recommend that you do that. And while you're at it, you might as well subscribe to my channel, because I will be posting videos once a week and with the various projects that I'm working on. So I will be back after I've sanded, and then we'll talk about what the next step is going to be from there. I'm going to use a stripping chemical to strip the varnish from the top of the dresser. And the reason for that is I actually have a buyer, and she is wanting the top stained, and you really can't stain over a varnish. Even if you sand it, it's not going to have a nice, beautiful consistency to it. So I'm stripping the top. The body I will sand, because I am going to paint it a beautiful chalked linen white. And so I've already put the chemical down, and it's been down for about an hour. And what I use is, it's called Citri Strip. It's a stripping gel. And this one has more of a orangey smell to it. Most stripping gels can be pretty stinky, and the fumes can be overpowering. This one, you really, especially if you're in a ventilated area, which you always should be when you're using these types of chemicals, it doesn't smell that bad. It actually has, like I said, an orangey smell. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I have a bucket, you see here, and I put a plastic bag in it, because when I scrape this off with a plastic scraper, I am going to scrape it to the end, and then once I'm done scraping the whole surface, I am going to scrape it into this bucket and then wrap the plastic. So, and that way I can easily throw it away. It's easy to clean. So let me go ahead and start stripping, or I should say scraping. And if you can see how easy it comes off now. Depending on the type of varnish, you may have to keep it on longer. This one didn't have such a thick varnish. And in the areas that I'm coming across that might be need a little bit more, I will go ahead and maybe add a little bit more to just those areas. But now you can see the beautiful pine that's coming up after the varnish is being taken off. So I'm going to keep stripping here. you get the idea. I will come back to show you what it looks like when it's completely stripped and cleaned off. And that way you can see how easy it is. After you're finished with the stripping, you want to make sure you get a damp cloth or a old t-shirt or something and just use it to wipe down the surface, because the stripping gel can, the residue can kind of be sticky sometimes, and you want to make sure you go ahead and get that off before you start to sand the surface. All right, as I begin to sand, you've seen me sand before, but I did want to show you that for something that's already a piece of wood that's already been stripped, you want to go ahead and use a very fine type of grit sandpaper, just to clean off the surface. Well, I'm getting ready to make the wine shelves, and I've already started cutting, but I did save a board so I can show you exactly how I created the slots. Because with the wine shelf, it's going to be a crisscross. So there's going to be 3 rows across and 4 shelves vertically. So we want to make sure that the wood pieces are going to fit in with each other. And so you can see this. I'm going to see if I can get a little closer. Okay, so this is the board one of the boards I've already cut. Okay, and I won't lie here, because it did take quite a bit of measuring. And but I wanted to make sure that this is the piece of wood that's going to fit in there. So you'll see how nicely that's able to fit. Let me see if I can move this camera. There we go. And you'll see how nicely it fits right in there. So what I found is usually what you can do is you can actually clamp all the boards that you're going to use and cut them all at the same time. My saw is not, the blade is not high enough, so I actually had to cut each one individually. So that's one thing I'm going to need to invest in, is a saw that allows me to do this, because I'm sure this isn't going to be my last one. And then what I did here is, I know I need to go in only a certain depth, so I put a piece of tape, so when I cut, I know that I only can go as far as the tape, and that's as long as I want to go in. So I've made my marks, and it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but I actually made my marks using the other template. Now I'm going to go ahead and get ready to start sawing these pieces off. And I'm going to go ahead and shift the camera here in a bit, so I will be right back as I get my protective gear on and start sawing. Okay, I made my first cut, so there it is, and then now I have to make the cut on this side here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, once this cut is made, I'm going to go down the center to break off these pieces of wood. So I am going to, you're not going to hear any more speaking from me until I get this part done. And I'll fast forward it so that, we're not on here for too long. I'm making my adjustment here. All right, see how, just take my headphones off so I don't speak so loud, how nice and clean that is. So again, always wear your protective gear. because I had just pieces of wood flying everywhere. So I'm covered in wood, but more importantly, I didn't want it to get in my eyes. So, all right, I'm gonna finish the other cut and then I will come back when I have the shelves ready to install. Well, I finished the wine shelves, and as you can see, they turned out great. I'm not putting them in the dresser just yet because I want to do all the painting and all of that before I fit them in, but they do fit very well. And just like I showed you these shelves that I cut. I did the same thing with the long shelf, and I have a picture that I posted so you can see. So I measured, it was 6 inches spacing between, and then the fourth shelf will be at the very bottom, which will be the base. So it's going to go right in here. So now I have a lot of cleaning to do. I have a lot of sawdust around here, so I will be cleaning up, making sure that my workstation is clean before I start painting. Okay? All right, I'm back. I have painted the body of the dresser, and now I have protected the entire body so that I don't get stain on it. If you haven't watched my video on how to stain, there are a couple of steps, that I usually take, and that is obviously, I sand it after I stripped it, and then I pre-treat the wood. Because I stripped it, the wood needs a little bit of conditioning. So I went ahead and did that already. So I would highly recommend you go and watch that, just so that you make sure that, when you do decide to stain a piece of wood, you take the steps that are needed so that you can get a nice, consistent finish on it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a roller this time because it is a kind of a big surface, and I want to make sure that I don't get any brush marks. I want it to look nice and smooth. So, and let me show you. The stain that I'm using is this one here. Let's see if I can get it in the, it's Varathane wood stain. I've never used this one before, but it was the color that I needed. It's a black cherry, which is really rich and beautiful. Okay, as I start to stain, remember to go with the grain of the wood, and I'm doing the first layer here, so going pretty quick. All right, after you stain, you want to go ahead and wipe it off with a terry cloth type of material. So, it's finished. It turned out beautifully. I am just jealous, to be honest, because it's not going to be mine. My husband already told me I cannot add another piece of furniture into our house. So, I'm bummed. But I think it turned out, I'm very, very happy with the end result. I made the shelves for the wine bottles to go into, and these doors open up so that there'll be some space in there for your dishes and things like that. Let me see if I can get the angle right here. And of course there's drawers for, linens and things like that. So this is going to go into a dining room. So it is done, and the buyer is going to come and pick it up soon, and I will be on to my next project. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can see some of the other projects I'm working on. And again, like and share with your friends. And as always, this was a big accomplishment because I'd never done shelves like that before. So I'm definitely celebrating tonight. Cheers to you.